We gon' get it right.
Protests and anthems, yes, we chanting. A movement of people, it's like we dancing to the ministry of. It's the energy of, in memory of them that we love. The trinity of the people, the peace, the power, the truth. We speak, the power's even louder. We can say it blacker, we can say it prouder. A woman vice president that went to Howard. Now we talk helping black businesses, and our differences is magnificent. Bringing light to the point where the prisons is. I was told good life is where forgiveness lives. The ascension is to leave what's left behind and feed the seeds for deeds that bless the mind, caress the mind, and question justify. When you and God and time are best aligned.
Shine, fly, no time to waste while it's passing you by. Shine, fly, be patient, cause good things happen in time. We gon' get it right. We gon' get it right. We gon' get it right.
We gonna get it right. We gonna get it right. We gonna get it right. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, your host and White House correspondent, not at the White House, but right here with you live in studio in LA. I'm in touch, and so you be in touch. Follow me on all the social media platforms at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. Just type in Dr. Nii-Q, DRNIIQ. And there I am, fresh for you to follow. Also, be sure to download the KBLA app. And wherever you're sitting, touch your neighbor and tell them to also download the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand, or simply tell Alexa to play KBLA Talk 1580. There we are for your listening pleasure. Also, be sure to subscribe to A More Perfect Union podcast. That way, you'll never miss an episode. You'll always have us right there in your pocket, right there in your hands. You could be in the line at the grocery store or at the bank or chilling out on the beach. Wherever you are, we'll be right there with you. There are so many incredible conversations that we've had with folks who are shaping the culture. And so don't miss out on that. Subscribe to A More Perfect Union podcast powered by KBLA Talk 1580. Now, who doesn't enjoy a good chicken wing? Especially if it's a lemon pepper wing. Do I have a witness? If that is the case for you, and I suspect it might be, happy National Chicken Wing Day. The USA Today is reporting that National Chicken Wing Day may have been cooked up in Buffalo, New York. You get it? Buffalo wings, chicken wing. Hee hee ha ha. It's become a nationwide excuse to indulge in the dish. Did you know that back in 1977, then Mayor of Buffalo, Stan Makowski, he proclaimed July 29th as National Chicken Wing Day to celebrate that thousands of pounds of chicken wings are consumed by Buffalonians in restaurants and taverns throughout the city each week. That's just a smidgen of the amount of wings that are now consumed annually in the U.S. Did you know that Americans have ordered more than 1.2 billion servings of wings in the 12 months ending June 2025? Did you know that? And that's down 1.5% from the year before. It's according to research that tracks this stuff. And so let's get that number up. That's some good protein right there. Enjoy National Chicken Wing Day with a wing in hand. All right. Now it's time for your national news roundup. It's time for you to decide the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. Just yesterday, while we were on air, we broke this news. And as a follow-up, we want to update you and let you know that police are investigating the motive after 5 people, including a gunman, were killed in an office high-rise. This is what we know about the Manhattan shooting as of now. 5 total dead. New York City police officer and 3 civilians were killed by a gunman who opened fire inside the 345 Park Avenue high-rise corporate building in Midtown Manhattan last night. The suspect died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound, according to authorities. The suspect, Shane Devon Tamura, a 27-year-old from Las Vegas, has been identified by police as the gunman. Officials say he acted alone and has, quotes, a documented mental health history. 4 people, including an off-duty New York City police officer, an executive at the investment management company Blackstone, an employer of the real estate firm Rudin Management, and a security guard were killed. Tamura's motives have not been disclosed, but 2 officials familiar with the matter told sources that the suspect left a note. He left a note in which he wondered if CTE, a brain disease caused by head trauma, was a possible cause of his mental illness. It's also worth noting that the NFL is in 345 Park Avenue, and Mayor Eric Adams said the gunman was attempting to get to the league's headquarters. As more details come out, we'll be sure to keep you updated, but our thoughts and prayers are with the victims of that shooting, their families. Certainly there's a friend of mine from Washington who works for the NFL and had posted on social media that he had just left the office just minutes before the gunman had entered the building. And so he seemed to be a bit shaken by it. I'm sure so many people are. In other news, Ghislaine Maxwell says that she's willing to testify, but under some very specific conditions. USA Today reporting that Jeffrey Epstein's convicted co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, says that she's willing to testify before Congress on what she knows about the disgraced financier who died in jail in 2019. But no surprise here, she has conditions. Maxwell expressed her willingness through a July 29th letter from her lawyer, David Marcus, to Representative James Comer, Republican of Kentucky, who leads the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. Comer issued a subpoena, you might remember, just last week to secure Maxwell's testimony through a deposition on August 11th at the Federal Correction Facility in Tallahassee, Florida. However, Maxwell said that she said in the letter that the apparent arrangement for her testimony, speaking from prison and without first securing immunity, are non-starters. And so for somebody who's currently incarcerated, she sure has quite a bit of stipulations for this testimony. And so we'll see how this thing shapes out. We know that she at least has expressed a willingness to talk under certain conditions. And while she's expressed that willingness, NPR is reporting that Trump says that his falling out with Jeffrey Epstein was over spa workers at Mar-a-Lago. President Trump offered new details today over what led to his falling out with Jeffrey Epstein some 2 decades ago, telling reporters aboard Air Force One that the rupture had to do with employees who worked at the spa at Mar-a-Lago. Trump has repeatedly said that he kicked Epstein out of his club for hiring workers away from Mar-a-Lago. When asked if those workers who were hired away were young women, Trump responded, the answer is yes, they were. In fact, the president said, quotes, people were taken out of the spa, hired by him, in other words, gone, and other people would come and complain. This guy is taking people from the spa. I didn't know that. And then when I heard about it, I told him, I said, listen, we don't want you taking our people, whether it was spa or not spa. I don't know them. I don't want them taking people. And he was fine. And then not too long after that, he did it again. And I said, out of here. And so for a president that claimed he didn't know who Jeffrey Epstein was, who's that? Jeffrey Epstein, who's that? Now, today, a very different story. And so we'll see how this story continues to unfold. When we come forward, we're switching gears, and I'm really looking forward to being in conversation with author Joseph Lee. He's the author of this new book. It's called Nothing More of This Land. Before Martha's Vineyard became one of the most iconic vacation destinations in the country, it was home to the Wampanoag people. Today, as tourists flock to the sandy beaches of Martha's Vineyard, the island has become increasingly unaffordable for tribal members, with nearly 3/4 now living off island. We're going to talk to Joseph Lee about his experience growing up in Aquinnah, Wampanoag, and we're going to learn more about this book that folks are buzzing about, the book, Nothing More of This Land. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More with author Joseph Lee when we come forward.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're proud to be celebrating 4 years on the air, but we know we could not have made it this far without you. We work hard every single day to curate conversations that will enlighten, encourage, and empower you. So, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, a big thank you for your love and support.
You don't know how much you mean to me.
And by the way, if your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time, whenever news breaks, while we're on the air. It's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580, and we're glad you're on this journey with us.
You never turned away, you were right there. And I thank you, thank you.
Nationwide is so much more than a great insurance company. They're one of America's largest financial services companies. Like how I'm more than Saquon Barkley, the NFL's reigning leading rusher. I'm also the NFL's leading husher. Shh, hush up back there. Wow, I might have just set the hushing record. Well, almost. For your insurance and financial needs, Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Investment Services Corporation, member FINRA, Columbus, Ohio.
At Target, back-to-school-a-days are here. What is back-to-school-a-days, you ask? We're talking 7 days of deals on looks and styles the kids will love, at prices you'll love even more. Because back-to-school at Target means getting all of the above. Through August 2nd, save 25% on select kids' clothes, with additional savings to round out their looks, including uniforms, leggings, polos, and activewear. Plus, their new favorite backpacks are 30% off. Happy back-to-school-a-days now through August 2nd, only at Target. Terms and conditions apply.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a Black and Brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 15.
Hit me! National news of consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, and to all of our leaders, learners, and listeners out there, you know that at least the past several years, I enjoy spending a little bit of time in Martha's Vineyard. This year will be no different. Next week, I'll be in Martha's Vineyard. And as much as I love, doing the polar bear plunge at the inkwell and enjoying a good lobster roll, the kind that you can only get on the island, I really just love the history of Martha's Vineyard. Every year I go there, I learn just a little bit more about that history. And this book that we're about to talk about is a primer for, I think, what more may come during this year's visit. I'm really delighted to welcome Joseph Lee. He's the author of Nothing More of This Land. He's an award-winning journalist. And again, you know, there's a lot of people who have very fixed ideas of Martha's Vineyard, what it is, who belongs there. People think they know the history of Martha's Vineyard, and it's so much deeper and richer than that. And this book is a gift. It's a gift to anyone who is willing to dive a little bit deeper and learn a little bit more. And so thank you for this gift, Joseph.
Yeah, no, thank you for reading so generously.
Absolutely. And so first things first, you know, talk to us about what inspired you to write this book. You know, I know that, you know, you spent a lot of time on the island. You've worked on the island. When people discover that you are Native American, I'm sure you get a whole wide range of responses from people, some sillier than others. Talk to us about how those responses may have played a role in inspiring you to write this book.
Yeah, I mean, I think silly is a good way to put it. And you'll know too, probably when you talk about Martha's Vineyard, like they're like, "You're going where this summer?" You know, are you sure? And yeah, you know, I grew up off island, but visiting my family back on the island, and kind of the two strange things I encountered was one, that the way people think about Martha's Vineyard and they don't expect to encounter a tribe there. And then the other part of it was the way people think about Native folks in general in this country, I think is really kind of misguided, or, you know, not super well informed. And those were kind of the driving factors that I wanted to understand more about my own history, because I really wasn't taught that in school. You know, we learn about the Mayflower, the Pilgrims, and those were Wampanoag folks right there. But then after that, it's kind of like we disappear and you never hear from us again. And then people visit Martha's Vineyard and they're like, "Wait, who are you?" And it was really trying to unpack some of that, both for readers and for myself, that I really wanted to understand. And that's kind of what set me off on the journey of the book.
Yeah, I mean, that is pretty incredible that all of that inspired you to go on this particular journey. For folks who are less familiar about just the history of the Wampanoag tribe on Martha's Vineyard, you know, it has not been easy for the tribe to become federally recognized. I think there are a lot of people that think that process is simpler and more linear than it really is. Talk to us about that process that really happened. I think it was in the lifetime of your parents. Is that correct?
Yeah, just a few years before I was born. So it mostly was happening in the 70s and 80s. And just to back up a little bit, I think a lot of people may not even know what the process of federal recognition is. And basically that's a, you know, US federal government policy recognizing Indigenous nations as sovereign nations, rather than just kind of like a collection of people with a shared culture. You know, it's recognizing the political, cultural, and historical sovereignty of nations. But for a lot of tribes, the federal government is pretty keen to say, you know, there were natives here, but not anymore. You guys aren't really a government anymore. And one of the reasons for that is because if there's not a government, it's much easier to take and control the land. And what happened with us is we didn't have federal recognition for a very long time. And then in the 70s and 80s, this is my grandparents and parents' generation, they were fighting with the town government, state government, and federal government to, you know, be recognized, to assert themselves, and to be acknowledged as a people and as a nation. And so that's kind of what set the scene for the way I grew up in the tribe receiving federal recognition, but it was something that was very new for the tribe at that time.
And in what ways did that federal recognition help? And in what ways did that federal recognition, you know, sort of, you know, make life a little bit more difficult? I mean, I think there are a lot of people who have these assumptions that if you live on a reservation, if you have federal recognition, you don't pay any taxes. That in fact the federal government, is basically giving you a stimulus check and your kinfolk a stimulus check. Part of what you document in this book is how the reality for your family and a number of folks who are part of the Wampanoag tribe on Martha's Vineyard, that was not their experience. No.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of stereotypes about the way that the federal government treats Native folks. And one of them is that we just get like free money all the time. The casino check is rolling in, the stimulus check is coming in, you don't pay taxes. And most of that is just not true at all. And another important thing to mention is that in a lot of Native communities, and especially in mine on Martha's Vineyard, is that there's land owned by the tribe, and then there's land owned by individual tribal members. And so, for example, our family home is just on privately owned land. And that's not, there's no special circumstances there. We pay the same property taxes as everybody else. And on Martha's Vineyard, those property taxes are really expensive because there are all these really beautiful, large vacation homes with pools and tennis courts and spare bedrooms and gardens and all this stuff. And so the value of property on the island is really high. And so when we're paying property taxes that go up every year on land we've owned for countless generations, it becomes a challenge to hold on to that land, especially when there's limited opportunity for employment and education and the other things that we need to live. So yeah, federal recognition has helped a lot in terms of getting some support through federal programs and access to grants and that sort of thing. But it's not as if you get that and suddenly, everybody's rolling in cash.
Thank you for correcting that misconception. There are a number of folks out there, speaking of misconceptions, they're not so crazy about how Martha's Vineyard has become a bit of an it spot. We're seeing a lot more, celebrities and influencers making their pilgrimage to Martha's Vineyard, particularly in the summer, with the Obamas purchasing their home, which I believe is now up for sale on Martha's Vineyard. There are a lot of people that just sort of thought that drove up housing prices when affordability on the island was already an issue for the people that live there year round. What's the perspective of your tribe? Do they appreciate all of the newfound fanfare and interest in Martha's Vineyard? Or would they prefer a quieter existence on the island?
Yeah, I think it's a complicated answer because the reality is a lot of tribal families like my own, we rely on tourism. My parents have a seasonal gift shop that my grandparents started in the 70s, and tourism is just the way you survive on Martha's Vineyard. So I think it's hard now to imagine an island without that. And I think one thing that we are seeing as the island continues to grow, I think depending on your community and your interest, maybe it's the Obamas, maybe it was the Clintons before that, maybe it's one of the various movie stars who come there. I think that sometimes there can be a thing that people who got there really recently want it to go back to the way it was when they got there. Mm-hmm. And I think for a lot of tribal members, that's kind of hard to swallow because, returning to the way it was in 2005 or 1995 is still very, very different from the way it was for us for hundreds and thousands of years. So I think it's a complicated answer. I don't think tourism is all good or all bad, but it's something we have to deal with.
One of the things that you do so well in your new book, Nothing More of This Land, is you weave in your own story and the story of your family into, this wider narrative of Indigenous life in the world. Talk to us about why you decided to approach this book in this way.
Yeah, I wanted to bring myself into it because I wanted to be really clear that this is from my perspective. I think, you'll probably understand this when you're speaking about these kind of issues, people have a tendency to want you to speak for everybody. It's like, that's the voice of this community. And I really don't want to be that. I'm speaking, for myself and my perspective. And so I wanted to kind of own that and make that clear. And The reason why I also wanted to use my perspective to bring in other voices is just because I think when we talk about Indigenous folks and Native folks, we don't really think about the diversity. I think we're kind of seen in a monolithic, homogenous sort of way. And I wanted to try to capture as much of the diversity in our culture, our traditions, our land, our interests, but also some of our disagreements, which I put in the book. We're not all getting along all the time and agreeing on everything. And I think that's important to talk about. And so I really wanted to write a book that sort of brought that perspective that I have about tribal communities, for readers.
Speaking of things that folks aren't necessarily getting along about, in the book, you write about how you meet activists that are fighting to protect their land. You write about families that are clashing with their own tribal leaders and working hard to reclaim tradition. I want to learn a little bit more about that, being that land loss is an issue I've been hyper-focused on, working closely with the Black Land Loss Narrative Archive Project recently. That land loss is more pervasive than I think most people think. And if anybody knows that, it's going to be our Native brothers and sisters. And so when we come forward, I want to dive into that a little bit more. We're talking with Joseph Lee. He's the author of Nothing More of This Land. It is a very different side of Martha's Vineyard. More with him when we come forward. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
The audience is listening, thought-provoking, eye-opening, heart-rendering. This is where authentic voices meet powerful discussions on culture, community, and change. This is where Black voices matter. He's breaking boundaries, amplifying diverse perspectives, and tackling the issues that matter most to you. You're inside A More Perfect Union with Dr. Nii-Quartelai on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. 20 Democrat-led states are suing the Trump administration over a push to collect sensitive data on SNAP recipients.
They are basically trying to weaponize the SNAP program against immigrant communities in violation of the law.
Black New York Attorney General Letitia James says it's an effort to weaponize food stamps against immigrants. States have until July 30th to comply or risk losing federal funds. Beyonce's Cowboy Carter tour is now the highest grossing country tour ever, pulling in over $407 million from just 32 shows. She wraps the history-making run in Vegas, topping tours by Morgan Wallen and Zach Bryan. And Nevada Attorney General Aaron Ford is running for governor in 2026. The Democrat launched his campaign Monday in East Las Vegas. Ford, the first Black person to hold statewide office in Nevada, is aiming to unseat Republican Governor Joe Lombardo. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Slow moving on the 14 in Santa Clarita. This is the northbound side, leaving the 5. You're on the brakes in stretches all the way to Soledad Canyon Road. The 5 northbound remains awful. This is northbound out of Valencia. Delays from Lyons Avenue as you continue ahead all the way towards Templin Highway, where the right lane has been off limits for cleanup after an earlier car fire sparked a brush fire, and the drive is just a nightmare. We're also heading out to the latest in Orange County. This is the eastbound side of the 91. Delays away from just about the 57 freeway all the way to Green River.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique, but you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Interesting night tonight for the LA Sparks. They're at home against the Las Vegas Aces. The Sparks, now 11-14, are trying to win 6 in a row for the first time since 2023. The Sparks' 5-game winning streak is the longest active streak in the WNBA. 7 p.m. tip-off at Crypto.com Arena. If you can't make it to the game, NBA TV has live coverage. Troubling times for the NFL's headquarters in New York City. Investigators believe the gunman who killed 4 people Monday in a Manhattan office building, including a New York City policeman, may have been trying to get to NFL personnel in the building. Police found a note on the shooter, who killed himself after the attack, blaming the NFL for his brain trauma. The shooter, identified as Shane Tamura of Las Vegas, was not a former NFL player. One of the shooting victims is an NFL employee but doctors said the person is expected to recover. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Break out the champagne. Everybody get a glass.
Tavis Smiley is now ranked number 16 nationally and the highest rated talk show hosted by an African American on the 2025 Talkers Heavy 100 list of the most important talk radio hosts in the nation. Last year, Tavis ranked number 33 and the year before, number 45. The Tavis Smiley Show has rapidly expanded its national syndication to now include nearly 50 radio stations across the country and counting. Congratulations, Tavis.
Yeah.
Los Angeles is rebuilding after the fires. If you call Altadena home, you understand the toll and the challenge of rebuilding. Now is your chance to shape the future of our neighborhood. Through Engaged California, survivors like you can help guide how we rebuild, quickly, thoughtfully, and with lasting resilience. It's safe, it's anonymous, and it's powerful.
Fire is a highly traumatic experience. There should be counselors available as soon as possible and shelters to help people cope.
I've been reaching out about my recovery plan. It's not the doors are getting slammed, it's that no one answers my knock.
Two friends of mine lost everything, and I have thought of them every single day since the fire. People need to process this, and they need all the help they can get.
These are real stories shared by survivors. Your experience can drive real action. Your story can help us build back stronger. We need to hear from you because no one knows your community like you do. Through Engaged California, survivors of the wildfires have the power to shape how we recover together. Your voice, your Altadena. You help decide. Visit engaged.ca.gov and sign up now.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Imagine a Los Angeles where everyone can thrive, where communities have access to the resources they need to succeed. That's the vision of Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. They're dedicated to improving life in LA County by providing educational support, employment assistance, and spaces for community engagement. By 2050, they want LA to be the best place to connect, create, learn, live, and play. They're working toward an education system that's well-resourced and culturally responsive, becoming a hub for artists and innovators, and making sure everyone has access to healthy food, quality healthcare, and safe housing. It's about building a future where we all have the chance to succeed. We invite you to learn more about their mission and get involved with Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to building a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We're in afternoon drive time, and I'm really enjoying this conversation with Joseph Lee. He is the author of a new book that you got to get your hands on. It's called Nothing More of This Land. It's an important read because it offers a different perspective, Joseph's perspective on Martha's Vineyard from the perspective of somebody who's Native American. Now, Joseph, I've got to ask you the obvious question, and you probably get this question a million times for all of our leaders, learners, and listeners out there who are streaming on YouTube or other platforms. They're looking at us and they're wondering, okay, wait a minute. Your name is Joseph Lee, but you are Native American. And, you know, to the undiscerning eye, for a lot of people, if they saw you in the grocery store, they might think that you were Asian. Explain that.
Yeah, so I'm both, I guess, is the short version. But the longer version is, my father's family is from China, and my mother's mother is from Japan, and my mother's father, my grandfather, is a Quinawampanoag, or was a Quinawampanoag. And so, I think, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to write the book and capture the diversity of Indigenous experience, to show that, we don't all look a certain way. We have mixed backgrounds, mixed heritage, mixed family, all of that. And, it's been a big part of my life, and dealing with that sometimes insecurity because people look at me and I don't look the way people assume Native folks look. And so I kind of have to explain it. And then if you're on Martha's Vineyard, you have to explain it again. You're Asian, and I thought this was a rich white people place, and now you're telling me you're Native too. And so, it's a lot of explaining. And so that's what I wanted to do in the book.
And I love that you chose to do that in this book, that you chose to share this part of your story in the book. I can certainly relate as a fellow author. You know, I wrote the book Kamala, the Motherland, and Me after traveling to Africa with Vice President Harris in Ghana, in Tanzania, in Zambia. And as somebody who is also mixed heritage, you know, my father grew up in Ghana. My mom is Black American. They met in college in Texas at an HBCU and had me many years later in California, right? And so I have a mixed heritage story. You have a mixed heritage story. Kamala Harris has a mixed heritage story. There are a lot of folks out there that have mixed heritage stories. And I think one of the really wonderful things that may become of folks who read your book is it's going to help to widen the lens. You know, so suddenly we're not looking at Asian people or Black people or Native American people in this one-dimensional way.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. And I'm hoping that, you know, the book is really about kind of Indigenous experience and the ways that intersects with other parts of my life. But I'm hoping that readers who aren't Indigenous or aren't Native will also respond to it in the way that you're describing. You know, my book editor is actually from Italy. And, you know, for me, that's like a totally different experience. But she was saying a lot of the stuff I was writing about feeling like not belonging or not being enough was resonating with her. And to me, that was a really good sign that I was doing something right, because I think no matter where you come from, you deal with that kind of feeling. People on the outside expect you to be a certain way because you're Asian or you're Black or you're Native. And if you're a little bit different or part of your story is a little bit different, someone's always going to be saying, yeah, but are you really? And the answer is, I think the more, the better. And that's what I wanted to show in the book, is that I don't have to pick, you know, being Asian or being Native. I think it's all part of me. And the more I embrace that, I think the better it is.
Does the Wampanoag tribe, in your experience and based on your observations for folks who are mixed heritage, you know, you being, you know, sort of part Asian and Native, I'm sure there are folks who are Black and Native. Talk to us about acceptance from the tribe. You know, is it your experience? Is it your observation that folks that are mixed heritage are, you know, just as welcomed and feel just a sense of a belonging today, belonging to that tribe as they ever have?
Just speaking for my tribe, I would say absolutely. And I think that's one of the many really beautiful things about the tribe, is that we're all mixed, you know, and I think we all embrace that. And it's kind of fun when we all get together because everybody looks a little different. Everybody's coming from a kind of different place. Families are different, but we know we're all one big family and one big community. And yeah, we don't really have any, you know, from my experience, any issues with people feeling not welcome because of one part of their identity or one part of their family. And, you know, I think that's a strength of the community. So the more we lean into that strength, the better. And yeah, I hope we continue to do that.
Well, you know, one thing that has been happening that you write about in this book is, you know, sort of fighting among activists within the tribe that are hell-bent on protecting their land. And you write about how there are families that are clashing with, you know, their own tribal leaders and communities of folks that are working to reclaim traditions. Help us understand the fight around the land. We know that you know, there's no new land being made.
Yep. We got what we got. Yep.
Particularly on Martha's Vineyard. So what you got is what you got. You know, talk to us about what the fight over land has been on the vineyard, and what's the state of play.
Yeah, I think the way you frame that question is so important, because land is so valuable and so limited. And when you're in a situation like that, whether it's on Martha's Vineyard or, you know, in a city where apartments are small, that kind of thing, the stakes are higher and everything feels more urgent. If you have unlimited land, it's like, yeah, you can do whatever you want over there. I'll be over here doing my own thing. But when you're fighting over every little piece and scrap of land, every decision is consequential. Everything matters. And I think that's what's happening on Martha's Vineyard right now. And so within the community, we all agree we want to keep and protect the land and we want to benefit the community. But what that looks like, people have different opinions on. And, anybody who's ever spent any time in tribal politics or small town politics, from the outside, people might think, oh, that's, cute little small town politics, tribal politics, but it's serious, and it can get tense and nasty. And, people mean business because it really matters and it really affects people's lives. And those are some of the disagreements right now. Should we try to build more housing? Do we want to do more economic development? Should we be doing environmental projects? And I think it would be great to do all of that, but returning to the problem of you don't have that much land and resources, it's really hard to do all of that. So you're having to prioritize. And I think those are a lot of the conversations which we're having that I think a lot of communities are having across the country.
I mean, it's so fascinating. I mean, we're, from coast to coast and beyond, we're all having this conversation around affordability and access to housing. For some communities, it means the difference between, being on the land that, generations of family members have lived on versus living, offsite for most of the year and basically, coming on the island for special events.
Yeah, it's a really unique part of our tribe is that so few of us actually live on the island. And similar to the diversity in our backgrounds and families, I think we have to look at that as a strength, even though it comes from, an unfortunate colonial history. But I think right now, the fact that we are dispersed and that we do live in different places can be a positive thing, that we always need to return home and we should return home. And there's nothing that can replace that home, Aquinnah and Martha's Vineyard for us. But the fact that we're all spread out, I think can be a good thing. And it's really cool for me. I live in New York City, and to meet other Wampanoag folks here and meet up, or go to Boston and meet people. And I think that's one of the great things about our community, even though it is, it's also a challenge. And I do wish we had more opportunities for us to be on Martha's Vineyard.
We know that there has been a gigantic rollback in support for diversity, equity, and inclusion. We see the federal government specifically, pressing people to, erase the use of terms, erase the history of folks of color. Is there any concern among the Wampanoag people that the hard-fought federal recognition that you all obtain might be in danger with this current administration?
As for federal recognition, I don't think there's a specific concern about that being taken away, but I think there's always a fear of losing everything. And, tribes know as well as anyone the threat that the federal government can pose. And that's one of the other things, I think, one of the other themes in the book is, this isn't about who's in power in the federal government, because I think Native tribes have always kind of been at odds with the federal government, and there have been, better administrations and worse administrations. And right now we're obviously dealing with a really challenging one, but I think the fight has been the same fight for centuries. And so we're still in that. And there's always a fear of losing what we have and our progress being slowed. So I think that's always there, whether it's, language being removed, historical pages being taken down, which I think for us is especially concerning because our history has been so often ignored or erased. And, that's one of the things I tried to correct in the book. But yeah, it's for sure a concern across the board. And, like many people across the country, we're kind of pretty worried about all that right now.
In our remaining minutes, Joseph, I want to ask you, if you could, provide a little bit of guidance to folks like me, or maybe not like me, that are going to be visiting Martha's Vineyard before the end of the summer. What advice, what guidance would you offer so that we are better visitors, that we're better neighbors, and that we are taking advantage of the opportunity to widen our lens when it comes to understanding the history and the folks who have been rooted on Martha's Vineyard for centuries?
Yeah, well, I appreciate you asking that. And I think really it's just going in with an open mind and, open to learn more about the tribe. And I mean, even being aware of the tribe, I think is a really great first step because a lot of people don't know we're there and are really surprised to meet us. So yeah, being open and respecting the land and respecting our tribe and trying to learn as much as possible. The tribe is always trying to do new things. Tribal members own shops up in Aquinnah. That's where my family's shop is. We have a tribal museum there, the Aquinnah Cultural Center. And so there are a lot of great opportunities to learn more about the tribe and to support us. And I really encourage people to do that. And I hope to see you there.
I hope to see you there as well, too. I've been to the Aquinnah Cultural Center before. There are some good places to eat around there. And I hope to see your book available for purchase at the Aquinnah Cultural Store. Of course, folks can pick up your book wherever books are sold. But the name of it is Nothing More of This Land. My thanks to author Joseph Lee, who really tells a compelling story, and it's a timely story. And here on A More Perfect Union, we're all about re-examining some of our assumptions about ourselves, about each other, about the world. And this book is right on the nose when it comes to the mission of the show. And so thank you so much for your work, Joseph.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. And I will see you there next week.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. You've been listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. The quiet part out loud when we come forward.
Striving to make America a nation as good as its promise. This is A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Nearly 7 million Americans aged 65 and older are living with Alzheimer's disease or AD. But did you know that Black adults aged 65 and older are twice as likely as white adults to develop AD? You may be able to reduce your risk by managing conditions like diabetes and high blood pressure, being physically active, eating healthy, and exercising your mind. To learn more about AD, the importance of early diagnosis and intervention, and a potential treatment option, visit treatalzearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com. This message is brought to you by AZI.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's cal-cruise-news.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
We face tragedy,
but we don't fall into despair.
We continue our work to build a more perfect union.
You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. It's time for the quiet part out loud. We were just talking with author Joseph Lee about his incredible new book, and got me thinking about folks that didn't grow up on or around Martha's Vineyard, folks that you might be able to relate to, folks who might just be you. The Griot reporting on what is the price of being Black in suburbia. Well, you know, they say ask those who have had to pay it. If you were to type price of being Black in suburbia, you might want to go ahead and try it while we're on air right now. The price of being Black in suburbia. If you type that into the search bar of TikTok, videos upon videos depicting throwback digital camera shots of Black preteens and teens, braces clad, smiling awkwardly, smashed between several white kids, either in sports photos, before prom pics, yearbooks, or slumber parties. They would emerge, all set to the sounds of SZA, softly crooning the price of being Black in suburbia. You see, over the past several weeks, the snippets of SZA's lyric, it pulled from interlude Wavy, has become a viral phenomenon as Black creators on the platform who grew up in suburbia use it as audio prompts to tell stories, layering childhood snapshots with confession-style text overlays. Users are unpacking the complexity of growing up Black in predominantly white spaces and the emotional cost that came with it. I mean, look, there's so many folks out there that have this idea, to our guest Joseph Lee's point, that different communities exist as a monolith. And we know from not just guests like Joseph Lee, but a lot of guests that come on the show, that Black people are not a monolith, no more than Native American people, no more than Asian people, no more than Latino people. And I really love that this TikTok phenomenon is revealing that simple truth, that so many of us know. As Brother Andy reminds us, a lot of people out there think if you're not from the hood, you ain't Black. A lot of people out there who think that, if you are gay, that somehow you're different. You're not quite like us. And the reality is that we as a people are all of the above and then some. This trend, it really resonates deeply because it speaks to something long misunderstood. Our folks at the Griot talk about how the experience of growing up Black in suburbia has often been treated as suspect, as not quite right, as not quite real from all sides. And for generations, Black suburban kids have been dismissed by their non-Black and white peers as anomalies, and by their Black peers as inauthentic. All of it feels a little strange to me. All feel that they're playing at something when they're just existing. These slideshows and videos, they aren't pleas for sympathy or belonging. They're a reassertion. Dare I say, they're a declaration. Now, granted, some are using this trend as an excuse to post more stylized, natural shots of themselves with their suburban non-Black friends, clarifying that they aren't throwing shade at the others in the images. They're just using the song, but still, it proves that the real price of being Black in suburbia is a constant negotiation or explanation of self. Many of the TikToks out there, they hint at it directly, but they describe these microaggressions, how kids learned to code switch before knowing what that term meant, how they monitored their speech, how they monitored their hairstyles and music taste, and how they never felt enough. The cost wasn't financial, it was cultural. It was learning to live between, always adjusting, always just slightly out of sync. And so my thanks to our friends over at the Griot for lifting up this story. Kay Wicker over at the Griot for lifting up this story, lifting up this trend, this phenomenon on TikTok that we might not be talking about if the young people on TikTok weren't being as brave as they have decided to be. When we come forward in our next hour, I am looking forward to talking about international affairs. That's right. I want to talk about Africa. I want to talk about international affairs with an expert that knows a whole lot about all of the above. Desiree Cormier-Smith, our resident international affairs expert, will join us to separate the fact from the fiction when it comes to some of the biggest trending headlines today. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz activated the National Guard after a cyber attack hit St. Paul. Black Mayor Melvin Carter declared a state of emergency as the city's systems and website faced major disruptions.
Yesterday, we initiated a full shutdown of our information systems as a defensive measure to contain the threat.
Officials say the attack exceeds the city's ability to respond alone. Drake is revisiting his Degrassi days and